The haunting hour is at hand. Ghostly haunting since time began. Raw side paranormal seeks the truth, looking for some kind of real proof. Creepy floorboards and eerie dark mist. Grab your camera and document this. No time to run, no time to hide. We are catching all of this on the raw side. A slamming door causes a fright. A shadowed hand appears in sight. Grab your REM pods and your K2s or anything else you can use. No time to run, no time to hide. We are catching all of this on the wrong side. A slamming door causes a fright. A shadowed hand appears in sight. Grab your REM pods and your K2s or anything else you can use. No time to run, no time to hide. We are catching all of this on the raw side. The icy air touches your neck. You feel like screaming, but you stay in check. Orbs rising up to take the magical flight. You can't believe what's happening tonight. Don't run, don't try to hide. We are catching this all on the raw side. Don't run, don't try to hide. We are catching this all on the raw side.
Hey, everybody. Happy Hump Day. Thanks for joining us here on the Raw Side. Let's check out to see who's in the chat. Hi, Faith, Oliver, Friday. Michael, welcome. Caroline, Rob, Dragon Ranger. All right. And of course, we know that Justin's here. Who am I missing? Hopefully, I'm not missing anybody. Hello, welcome. I'm glad you guys could all hang out with us tonight. I'm excited, and I know you are, to welcome our guest, because we all know who he is, and he's fantastic. Just remember, guys, please sub to his channel. His link is in the description. And hi, Parasolo and Oliver. I think I missed you guys. Hello. I try to catch everybody. And I am excited. Justin is a legend. Yes, he is. And let's welcome the legend to the stage. Hello there, sir.
Good evening, Laurie. All right?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'll probably be like dead by the end of this stream. Because it's like midnight now. It's like 2 a.m. or something by the time we finish a bit. We're all good. It's fine. It's kind of like ghost hunting days, It's just like
just got to bounce right back. Well, we'll try not to keep you too long because I know you got to get up early.
Oh, it's fine. It's okay.
Hi, Carla. Welcome. Thank you guys for showing up. Yes, apparently you're a legend, sir. And I agree. We all love your program.
Whoever said that, bless your heart.
And I always ask all of my guests, we know your background as far as YouTube fame, but we like to know about the person behind the channel. Tell us about Justin.
Right. Okay. So, basically, I suppose I got into the paranormal when I was from the age of 8. We'll probably talk about this later, but my family home had a poltergeist for about 6 weeks or so, and so, but when I was 8 years old, a lot of it is kept from me by my parents because they didn't want to scare me or my brothers at the time. So we kind of knew what was going on, but didn't know the full facts for a while. And because of that, I think that I grew up wanting to know more about ghosts, poltergeists, and I just got really into it. So from about the age of, well, as I was growing up, when I was about 12, 13 years old, I was reading every book possible. I read about the Enfield poltergeist case and all of that kind of stuff. And so I joined up the various kind of paranormal societies when I was about 15, 16. And then life gets in the way. You end up getting older, getting married, having kids yourself, and all that kind of stuff. So it never really left me, this whole interest. And I'm not in any way kind of academic, but basically I started off by just going out on my own because I just wanted to kind of feed this kind of passion, this interest I had. So I ended up just doing stuff on my own for a while. And then I joined a ghost event company. So I had that kind of take on the paranormal for a bit. And then I joined up with another guy called Dale. And we set up a YouTube channel called Paranormal Truth. Right about the same time, if anybody has watched the Ouija Brothers, right about the same time as them, actually before them. And so the Ouija Brothers looked at us and was like, okay, you see, but we were very, very kind of skeptically minded and just wanted to experience things genuinely. And that's how we always went about things. And we didn't have any kind of gadgets. We didn't have this kind of stuff that other TV shows were using. We just wanted to have it on camera and audio, and that was it. So we went all over the UK. So many investigations that we did, and then we ended up filming a documentary that was on Amazon Prime for a while. And so we did that for a good few years. We've got a steady following. It went up to, I don't know how many thousands of subscribers, about 15,000, 20,000 subscribers, something like that. So pretty good.
Fantastic.
And then Dale, basically, I was kind of involved with another kind of society in the background. And basically it kind of fell apart, which is a shame. But then Dale, who set up the channel, decided to make everything private. So he stopped it. So I was just left going, okay, what do I do now? Because this channel just is essentially finished, and I had nothing. There was nothing, but I still had that interest. And one of the things I used to do, well, what we used to do was a podcast, and we did that every Monday, and it was always something I enjoyed because I love talking to people from around the world, and I'd spoken to the likes of Andrea Perrin and people like that, and so it was always something that, going back into the paranormal kind of idea. I wanted to get back into doing a podcast because I enjoyed it. Plus, as I'm getting older, it's pretty hard staying up to like 5 a.m. when you're doing
Yeah, it is.
So I was just like, I want something a little bit easier than just going on till 5 a.m. doing live streams and stuff. So that's how I fell into doing the podcast, and I started that in December. I've been thoroughly enjoying it since.
And we've all been enjoying it as well.
Thank you.
Yes, you had some great guests on, and we love the chats. It's great. Could you tell us about your very first paranormal experience?
Ooh. I suppose I will go back to childhood because that was my first taste of it, really. For like I said, I was 8 years old. It was in the 1980s. My family had just moved into a kind of pretty large detached home. It was like a 5-bedroom home. It was built in the 1800s, and at one point or other, it was 2 homes that was converted into 1 home. It also used to be a shop. There used to be a factory opposite, so it obviously used to kind of cater for the workers in the factory. And so we moved into this home, and from night one, there was kind of my mum was having a really uneasy feeling about the place. She couldn't shake it off, and she made us all sleep in the one room because she had this really unusual feeling about the property. Anyway, that was on night one, and then we had a series of things moving in the home, items being moved around. I was 8. My brothers were about 4 and 5 at the time, so they had lots of little toys and stuff. My parents would put them away like in a toy chest before they went if they were going shopping, things like that, and lock the door, and then come back home and find these toys scattered all over the house on top of wardrobes. you name it, all over the place. So that was one thing that happened. TV channels changed TV changed channels on its own, which could have been 80s electronics. Technology wasn't great then, but I can remember my dad telling us what was going on the night before, and he just found it. He was bemused. He just found it funny, to be honest. He didn't know what the hell was going on, but he liked to make a joke of it to make it kind of easier on all of us. My bedroom was always freezing cold, even in the height of summer, even with heating on, always cold. And it, for some reason, it always smelt of earth, mud, like potatoes type smell.
Right, right.
And that never really left for a good while. Anyway, so that was going on. Also, we also had a wall in our kitchen, and on a daily basis, it would be beaten, like hammered, like as if somebody's on the other side of it. It would be kind of banging against the wall.
Right.
And my mum at the time, it was the 80s, she had these kind of decorative plates. Do you remember in the 80s, decorative plates and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I have them in my kitchen.
Yeah, she had them all over this wall.
All right.
And it was kind of so fierce that she thought these things would smash. So she was getting more annoyed by what it was. So she basically would swear at it and just tell it to stop, and it would immediately. It was really, and I
didn't want to mess with mama.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And I only thought that happened once or twice, but it was literally only a couple of years, maybe even about 2 years ago, my mum said, no, this was on a daily basis. This happened nearly every day for about 6 weeks. And it would always stop when I basically got annoyed with it and told it to stop. And then it would. And so what else was going on? So we had toys moving. We had like I say, temperatures and things like that. Really uneasy atmosphere in the house. And like I said, my dad made light of it. My mum was a little bit more scared of it, to be honest, and was very protective of me and my younger brothers. And then 6 weeks down the line, the ex-owner of the home came back because she was in the area. She was seeing friends in the area. She'd moved away, and she just thought, well, while I'm here, I'll just see how they're getting on with the house in terms of, because my dad was always into DIY and was decorating, and to be honest, I think my mum and dad were a bit embarrassed because they were kind of knocking walls down and changing stuff around. Anyway, my mum and dad were showing her around, and just had a general chit chat. Didn't mention anything about the weird stuff that was going on, as you wouldn't. And before she left, she just turned around to my mum and said, "You've been having some strange things happen here, haven't you?" And my mum was kind of a bit taken aback because she didn't mention anything. And she goes, "Well, yeah." She says, "It's all right. It's Martin. He's come with me now, so you won't have any more problems." So Martin was her husband. He died in a motorbike accident. And after his death, she found it too hard to stay in the property, which is why she put it up for sale. And she moved away, and obviously we moved in. And whether you want to believe it or not, I still get the feeling that the spirit of her husband had come back to the home to find that his wife wasn't there anymore. And it was like, who is this family? Where's my wife? So when his wife did return, he went with her. And from that day on, there was no more poltergeist activity in the home.
Isn't that amazing? You gave me a chill. We're just right there. Wow.
Yeah. So that was my childhood, having that story in the background. So yeah, that was all of that kind of stuff was going on.
So he never did anything to any of you. It was just he would move your stuff around and bang on the walls.
It was just trying to get attention, basically. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if it in some respects, it kind of followed kind of poltergeist cases because it was, it was short-lived, and it was like 6 to 8 weeks, and then it stopped, very much like a poltergeist case is meant to. But there was no, other than moving house, there was no stress in the family. It was a kind of a loving family. I wasn't a teenage girl that didn't really fit. So so that's why I've always been kind of interested in people's theories about poltergeists, and it's why poltergeists are my favorite subject matter, because I'm just so fascinated by it. Yeah.
Right,
So
yeah, you lived it, so yeah, that would I would be doing the same thing.
yeah.
So,
Like,
as far as your first, or that being your first experience when you got older, uh, what other experiences did you have that led you up to being an investigator?
I basically, like I said, I always had this, and I was reading things like the Enfield podcast case, and I can remember reading stuff like that and going, I just want to be in that kind of situation. It sounds really weird, but I remember reading that book, and there's a section in the Enfield podcast case where a press photographer gets hit by a Lego brick, and I remember reading it going, wow, I would love that, which is like really stupid, but I really would want to be in that kind of environment.
Right.
So anyway, so I started off going off on my own and getting little bits and pieces. It wasn't quite like the TV shows. It was a lot more boring than I was expecting. And anybody who's ever, done any kind of ghost investigating will quickly realize it's not like the TV shows. But I still wanted to kind of capture stuff. And so I started to do things on my own. I went with, like I said, Ghost Event Company, and it was all a bit kind of showy, and there was a couple of weird things, but like, for instance, I was in a place where I currently live, and there's a place called the Old Nick Theatre. So it's a small theatre building, but it used to be, in the Victorian times, in the 1800s, it used to be a police station and a magistrate's court. So it still has the old police cells. They look pretty grimy. And I can remember going there with the Ghost Event Company, and obviously with the Ghost Event Company, they have all the kind of gadgets and the gizmos and the Ouija boards and the K2 meters for members of the public to use. And there's two gentlemen in the middle of the theatre. And they were on the Ouija board, and we, as staff, we're not using it, we don't touch it. And I was just standing near them, and they're really skeptical blokes. They were like, I don't believe this exists. This is utter rubbish. Nothing's here. This is BS. I just think, come on, show us what you can do. I don't believe you exist. Come on, either do something, make a noise, show us something, throw something at me, do this, do that, do the other. And at that point, from an empty area of the room, was flung this object, and it hit him square in the forehead, and then it landed by my feet. And I'm like, how the bloody hell? I mean, because it's got a clatter, because it's all kind of on silent listening. And then it was a digital camera battery. No idea where it came from. Had just this little bit of plastic that just hit him square in the forehead in a pitch black, in a pitch black room. It whizzed past his mate's ear. He heard it go past his ear as it hit his mate in the forehead. And I from that point, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Would I say it's definitive? Not sure, but it was definitely cool. So I was just like, I'm going to kind of get into this a bit more, but because there was lots of people there, I wanted to have more proof. I wanted to kind of do things for myself. And so when I ended up with Paranormal Truth, I generally became more and more skeptical because the more you do it, we were going to some of the supposedly most haunted places in the UK, and we just weren't getting what people were saying they were getting when they go to this place. So I was like, okay, so there's some places with some big reputations in the UK, and because of their age, because of their backstory, whatever. And we would go to them and it was like nothing. And it was like, and we're looking at ourselves. Is it because we're as psychic as a brick? Is it because we're skeptical? Is it because we're a non-believer? Right. Whatever. But we just didn't understand why we weren't getting the same kind of things that other people were getting. And anyway, so eventually we went to this infamous place called 30 East Drive, which people, I know, right? and 30 East Drive has been done to death. And we and our very first investigation was at 30s Drive, and we had we had some odd noises and taps and little bits and pieces. Nothing major, but it was enough to kind of make us think there might actually be something there. Whereas in other places, there was nothing at all. It was just silence. So we kept on weirdly going back. And over time, we spent like hundreds of hours in the bloody place. And like I say, a lot of it was nothing. And then we once we had like a 2-night investigation. And the first night we took a couple of people there's a society in the UK called the Society for Psychical Research, very prestigious group. And we took a guy from that society, a guy called John Fraser, who came with us, who's basically a poltergeist expert. So we thought, great, we'll bring him in. And he brought somebody else called Rosie, who was from another very prestigious society called the Ghost Club. First night, nothing, absolutely nothing. Second night, we had a bit of because we had quite a few subscribers, we had quite a few fans of our channel. So we invited some people. It's kind of almost like competition winners, almost, really, a little bit like that. But we brought in about 8 other people, so we had about 10 people in total there. And there was, a mix of men and women, but we just weren't getting much. And so the women just said, "How about we just go into one of the bedrooms and just see if we can have a little séance? We'll sit down in a little circle and just see if we can just." Maybe it's the male energy or whatever, but the men just go downstairs and we'll just see if we can get something upstairs on our own. So I was like, yeah, okay, we'll try anything. Basically, nothing's going on. So the women sat in one of the bedrooms upstairs, sat in a little circle, and started to call out and things like that. And after a little while, they said, we felt there was something in the room with us. Like it was walking around. This cold air was walking around us. And one of the women felt and could see on her arm like the white marks of a hand being pressed down on her arm, like the finger marks on her hand. And so she thought, oh yeah, there's something here. But rather than giving it the attention that it wants, we're just going to ignore it. We're not going to kind of just, because if it wants our attention, we're not going to give it. And so they decided to go, right, we're going to go downstairs. We're just going to not, we're not going to give it the attention. So they went downstairs, they came to us, and they were just chatting to us in the kitchen. And we're just chit-chatting away. And all of a sudden, we heard from this room, and we had a camera on the landing, so we know there was nobody in the room. Everyone was accounted for. We knew where everybody was. And we heard this banging coming from the room immediately above us. And it was the room that these women had been in. And it was on wood. It was just bang, 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 bang. And it was like, oh, okay. Something's pissed off. Something sounds, the likes of the real hardcore skeptics will say, well, you're just giving it human emotions. But it sounded pissed off. It's the only thing I can say, because it was like getting more insistent. Bang, 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 bang.
It's because you were ignoring it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And we carried on ignoring it. But then I thought, I don't have a voice recorder in there. We've got a camera on the landing, but I don't have a voice recorder. So I ran up the stairs, went into the bedroom with another lady called Lindsay. She put her voice recorder on the floor. I put my voice recorder on the floor. And then we just came back downstairs again. Didn't say anything, didn't do anything in the room, just came back downstairs again and was like, please carry on. And after about a minute, it carried on. And we could all hear it. And it was getting louder and it was getting more kind of insistent. And it was probably about a dozen, I would say, if not more, bangs. And after then it kind of stopped. And so I thought, right, I've got to see if I've captured this, because we've been doing this for years and we never got anything which we would class as paranormal. Not properly, creaky floorboards, could be this, could be that. And so I ran back upstairs, got the voice recorder, brought it back downstairs, and was listening to it on headphones. And I was like, holy shit, we've got it. It's crystal clear. And yep, definitely on wood. Yeah, it's definitely getting louder. yeah, it's definitely become more insistent, and we know there was nobody definitely in there. And I was like, I think we've actually got it. I think we've actually got a poltergeist activity going on above our heads. So I'm passing my headphones around to everybody, going, just listen to this. It's just, we're like just giddy because, so skeptical. But I was just like, oh my God, you can't deny this. This is just ridiculous. And so we're doing this, and we was all a bit kind of overexcited. And at that point, we were just still talking about it and things. And but we still didn't go into the room. And at that point, from the doorway of where the bedroom is, we heard the loudest stamping. And it was stamping. It wasn't kind of creaky floorboards. It wasn't some kind of small little footsteps. This was bang, 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 bang. And it went diagonally across. We could track it from in the kitchen downstairs. We could track it going along the ceiling, and it stopped in the corner of where the corner of the bedroom. And it was with such force that the downstairs light was swinging afterwards. And it was like, and we were just, all 10 of us were just there going, we were just like dumbstruck, properly dumbstruck, because it was like, well, what the hell was that?
Exactly.
And we are like laughing and swearing and smiling. And it's like, oh, holy shit, what the bloody hell was that? And to this day, that's the best experience I've ever had, because people can kind of pick it apart and why didn't you go up there? Why didn't you investigate this out? Because the reason we didn't is because we were getting something happening because we weren't going up in there. And it to this day, that's my best ever paranormal experience out of all the things, because it wasn't slight. It wasn't. So many people get excited by the slightest tap and the slightest noise and the slightest kind of, it could be a footsteps, it could be a voice. This was something with some serious force behind it. And after that thing, it just went silent, and I'll probably never get anything that good again. This was kind of the couple of things that I'll just point out, though, is the camera that was on the landing, which was next to the bedroom. When we reviewed the footage, the noise of this really heavy stamping, which we thought would be brilliant on camera because it was so loud, you couldn't hear it. And it's got a really sensitive microphone on it. And you could hear our reactions in the downstairs kitchen louder than you could hear the heavy stamping in the room next to the camera, which made no sense to us. It was like the stamping was going through the middle of the ceiling, not in the room itself, which, like I say, makes no sense whatsoever. When we analyzed the knocking on wooden furniture, there's a theory that a poltergeist knock, that the sound recorded from a poltergeist is different from if you or I knocked on a table, for instance. So we did the waveform analysis, and it showed that absolutely, when we tried to recreate it by knocking on furniture, it was a different waveform than what we had recorded. And so again, that was kind of a proof to us, okay, this is, we kind of captured something that was genuine. Yeah. And after that, we obviously kept on going back, and we took lots of more. We went back with the likes of the Ouija brothers, and we took parapsychologists like Kieran O'Keefe, if anybody knows him from the UK.
Yeah.
So we took top people with us, and we still had, we've had crazy things, really, but nothing as big as that. We captured, one of my favorites is when we had two police officers call round. Obviously, we're staying up through the night doing these live streams. We used to do 6 nights, night after night, and we used to do 8 p.m. till 5 in the morning every night for 6 nights, which was crazy. And you can't you can't really get into the property to do that anymore because it's so booked up. And it was nuts because it was just so exhausting. I mean, it's properly by first couple of nights, okay. By night 5 and 6, you are just dead because you've been doing it every night for 6 nights. But one night, about 3 a.m, we had 2 police officers knock on the front door, and was like, "Oh, okay." And we were with the Ouija brothers at the time. Now, Steve and Griff, being Steve and Griff, Steve brought his Chucky doll, and he'd taped a knife to Chucky's hand because he thought it would look really good on camera.
All right.
If he strapped a serious-looking knife to Chucky, had it on camera, and it would, if it was hoping it would do this on camera, right? So we had that on the live stream, and because we would try anything. And anyway, these police officers arrived, and the first thing they see on the laptop is the footage of Chucky with this knife in its hand.
No.
And it's like, oh, yeah, this is not a good situation, And so as it was, the 2 police officers were really chilled. They were really great, actually. They were just they were on their night shift. They'd seen the lights were on, and they were bored. Essentially, there's nothing going on in the neighborhood, so they just thought, the lights were on. They'd heard about the reputation of this place, and they asked if they could have a look around. So we invited them in. We told them what we were doing, and so we invited them around, and they had a look around the place. And so they saw the Chucky doll. So we had a conversation around Halloween, and one of the police officers said, it's funny actually because my son's ginger, so every Halloween we dress him up as Chucky because he looks perfect as a Chucky,
right?
And we laughed, they laughed, and a little kid who wasn't there laughed right next to them. And this sound of a child giggling in the hallway that wasn't there. And the police officers turned around to us and goes, "Did you hear that?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he goes,
"Fantastic."
And he goes, "Does that happen very often?" And we're like, "Well, it does happen. Yeah." And they were like, "Okay, we're going now, guys."
We're done.
We're gone.
Scared them off.
Yeah. Yeah, not staying for this. Absolutely not. So that
didn't give you much
confidence
in the policeman.
Yeah, I loved that. But yeah, we've had all kinds of voices picked up. Not on spirit boxes, but EVPs. We used to leave a locked off camera in East Drive, and we'd go for a meal, and everyone would be listening on headphones at home, and we used to get a woman. We had a child calling, asking for her mum. A woman's voice talking. We had the sound of somebody speaking in Latin coming up on the camera, and just really weird stuff that we knew couldn't be, and it obviously coming from within the home. And we it wasn't something that's outside. You can kind of tell because it's kind of muffled if things are outside. Yeah, so we had some strange things, mainly audible stuff, but the stamping and the knocking on furniture was absolutely mental. And so that's to this day still my favorite experience ever.
Fantastic. I find
Sorry
it
for
amazing.
a very, very long answer.
No, that's great because everybody's loving the story because we've all heard about 30 East Drive, so it's pretty interesting. I think it's amazing because it's happened to me where your camera audio doesn't pick it up, but your digital recorder does.
Yeah.
Because I've had the same thing happen to me a few times where you'd think that the camera would pick it up because it is so sensitive, but
yeah,
it's just like it bypasses that and just,
we've had that as well where there was one time the first night we were there when me and Dale did this investigation there for the first time. One of the things that happened was we'd gone through the night, and a few things had happened during the night, and Dale had fell asleep, and I was still awake on the live stream, and I was kind of nervous because stuff was kicking off upstairs. There was noises and taps and bangs and things, and I was the only one stupid enough to actually go and investigate it. You could kind of see me walking very slowly up the stairs to try and investigate what the hell was going on. And the next day, Dale decided to do like a little vigil on his own and calling out. Didn't hear a thing, nothing at all. He had a voice recorder, nothing on that. and just after about 25 minutes, just gave it up and then turned the camera off. Reviewing the footage on the camera, there's the sound of a pig grunting. And yeah, right. And you're thinking, that's a pig grunting. And it's only on the camera, not on the voice recorder. And we didn't hear it at the time. Where the bloody hell did this pig noise come from? It's just too nuts. But then afterwards, this is like a year afterwards, the 30 East Drive became known in the UK because of a book by a guy called Colin Wilson. And he wrote a book called Poltergeist, and it kind of very heavily featured what was called the Black Monk of Pontefract, which was all about this home. And so he wrote all down the experience of the family. He'd obviously interviewed the family and things like that. And one of the things they reported was, in quote, farmyard animal noises. And we didn't know that was one of the things that the family supposedly picked up. So it'd be interesting to know whether they actually heard the sounds of pigs, because that's what we got.
Yeah. And was there any records of that besides that story that you've read?
No. It's just in terms of like, because people talk about the same kind of stuff with, in terms of the back history of the property.
Right.
But you got to realize as well, I am not one to kind of be easily swayed by. I'm such a skeptical bugger, because I would be like, is it though? my reaction is always like, it's all right, but it's no proof of anything. And so so I was just became so skeptical. I just didn't think anything existed, in all honesty. And so I was always I cast a lot of doubt on 30 East Drive, and me and Dale did, because we just thought, well, this poltergeist case happened in 1969. There is no way it is still there from 1969. No chance. It's a short-lived thing. Might have been there in 1969. There is no way it's still there now. And so we just thought it was a scam. We thought it was a money-making scam. And the one thing I will just say is, since the mad episode that happened to us, I've been back since a couple of times. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So it's strange. It's very strange. But it's a weird one. But I do think 30 East Drive has been talked about a lot.
Yes.
And I get why people will be sick of talking about the bloody place, but it is genuinely the only place I think where I actually got something genuine.
Right. Well, same thing like with the Conjuring House, here in the States, it's just overplayed. It's like, holy crap, give it up already. Now
that's the thing.
Yeah,
exactly. I get it.
Yeah. It's overdone. Move along. Now, same thing. Like, we all know the Ouija brothers. We love the Ouija brothers. They're so fun. They do a great job. What is your opinion about their experience? The one where you see Griff when he was sleeping
with his chest being compressed
on his. Yeah. What is your opinion of that experience?
I think it's genuinely very odd, because I've spoke to him off camera, and obviously I investigated with them, and so I know them well, and I know that the thing with that is, some people are thinking, well, did he have some kind of heart attack, or was there some kind of a health issue with regards to his lungs, because he doesn't sleep very well. Basically, it's almost like a sleep apnea. So he has a machine basically when he sleeps to kind of help him breathe.
Right.
And so he said, well, straight after that happened, he was worried that maybe he wasn't getting enough oxygen. Was that the reason why there was this kind of chest compression thing that was going on? He went to the hospital. I think that the next day or that same day, they ran tests on him. Absolutely nothing showed up on the test. Perfectly normal. So I absolutely think it was whatever it was. It was not related to any issues he may have had with his breathing or his lungs or anything like that. Which, once you've kind of crossed that out, you think, okay, well, what else could it be? And if it was, and I know that with Griff, I don't think it's ever happened since, at home or anything like that. So,
right.
Am I willing to jump into the paranormal thing? Probably not, because again, I'm really hard to please. But it was really strange, and the and I do know that they get a lot of flack for going to East Drive a lot, but I do understand the reasons why. I don't think anybody else has been to East Drive as much as the Ouija brothers now.
Right.
That they seem to like. I mean, like Steve spent Christmas there with his family. This is like going back a while ago now, because he just wanted to spend a while there, seeing what it was like as a regular family, not videoing it, just to see
Right.
how it was. I mean, there's crazy stuff that's like some of you may know if you've been watching the Ouija brothers for a long time that one of their first experiences was when Griff was hissed at in one of the bedrooms and he ran out screaming. They weren't even recording it on camera at the point. It was just an audio thing. And so that happened to him. He also left they went to the pub, I think it was, for a meal.
Right.
And Griff left his camera phone videoing in one of the bedrooms whilst they were gone to see if they would capture anything. And when they returned, his camera phone was in bits on the bedroom floor. So there was no footage of anything. The back of the camera had been taken off. The battery had been removed. It was literally in 3 parts on the bedroom floor, and it was all locked up inside. So I absolutely believe that they've had some really interesting things. And say they're lovely fellas, unpredictable.
Love it. That's why they're so
really
great.
Unpredictable. But they are absolutely genuine. I like I say, I love them dearly. But yeah, we've had some good times investigating together.
Yeah, you never know what they're gonna do.
No. Yeah,
that's the great part about it. But yeah, I don't believe everything I see or hear either. But that one with the chest compression, I was just like, oh yeah, something pushed on him.
Yeah.
It's just how could you fake something like that? Or like you said, even if there was an issue with his health, I don't see. I could see if it was coming out and then down. Then it would be him reacting to something kind of pain or trauma. This was actually, you see, down and then up. So something pushed on him.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, particularly because obviously they showed us, after it happened. It's like, what do you make of this? And it's like, I've got no answers. It's just a very, very strange bit of footage because it does look like someone's pushed him down and come, and come back up again, But yeah, very odd.
So I can see why they would continue to go back there because, I mean, if that happened to me, I'd keep going back too because you want to know what the heck is going on, who did it, why it was done.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I think that for them, the reason they go back a lot, and the reason they do is simply because that's the place where they've had the weirdest stuff happen, and so they keep going back. And I know they get flack for it because it's like, oh Jesus, the 30s Drive again. Why do you keep going back? That's the reason.
Because you're getting something.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the audio. Like I say, somebody said, "Oh, you left your washing machine on." There's no washing machine on in here. Not at
might be my fan.
1 in the morning.
I shut the fan off. Maybe that's it.
Oh, is that what it? Oh, that's what it is. Oh, there you go.
I have a little mini fan, and it's next to the computer, so it's probably it's like a vibrator.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
It's like, no, I'm not washing my boxer shorts or whatever. So yeah.
Right. Well, it's actually me. I'm doing my delicates, and that's over to the side. So it's.
But yeah,
yes, Oliver's talking about the "I Love You" episode. Yes, that is another great one.
Yeah, and I will just say as well. I mean, one thing I suppose that that a lot of people obviously very skeptical, and actually I think that's a good thing. I genuinely think it's a really good thing in the paranormal because there's a lot of rubbish out there.
Oh yeah.
But there are some good teams who I absolutely trust, and Steve and Griff are two that I absolutely trust. So, do I think the "I love you" voice was genuine? Yeah, I do actually. I absolutely do. It's a great, but if you have not seen it or not heard it, it's a great bit of audio clip. It's a video clip, but you can hear very clearly, "I love you."
Oh yeah.
And it's a real class A, like I say, just on the camera audio, not a spirit box or anything like that. Just very, very clear. And it's rare. It is rare, but it does happen. Like I said, we've captured voices when we've not been in the room, and I've like I say, I've heard children giggling and laughing and stuff, which children aren't there. And trust me, when it happens, it's just bizarre. It is really bizarre, and I've got no answers for it. I've got to say, like I said, we had again East Drive. Sorry, but me, Dale, Steve, and Griff were outside of East Drive once, and Dale used to vape and basically needs some fresh air after a while because it's a pretty. For those that haven't been to
small
East Drive,
space.
it's a small space. It's kind of stuffy inside, and it's just like after a while. So you just need to get some fresh air after a while. So we just stand outside for a while, get some fresh air, and we'd be chatting away, and it was always things would happen when we were kind of on downtime, or just relaxing a little bit. See, all the cameras are on inside. We'd be chatting outside, and then all of a sudden, 2 children giggling, no more than 3 foot away from us, outside on the front garden, and it was like, no, because it was about, I don't know, I can't remember what time it was, about 11:30, and there's like, where are the kids? And we're just looking at each other going, no, bollocks. Sorry, that's like, there is no way it's that clear, and there aren't kids playing. So I was like, we're shining a torch in the next door neighbor's garden, and it's like, there are no kids here. What the bloody hell is going on? And the sound of children, and this has not been the first time, sound of children giggling, a couple of, like I say, a couple of feet away from you is really unnerving, I've got to say. But so it does happen.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it is very odd. It's what's weird is people are like, oh my God, that would be so scary. It's not scary when it happens. It's scary afterwards when you can't find the kids. If that makes any sense. Because you just think, oh, some kids are playing in the garden next door.
Exactly. That's what everybody would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Alyssa said, the children's sounds would frighten me the most, I think. I think everybody, because you're not expecting that.
No.
I think we always have it set in our mind. If you're going to hear anything that's paranormal, you're always expecting it to be an adult.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and also the other things that we had. One other thing we had again, same bloody place. Steve was right in front of me. We was in the kitchen, and there's a door that leads to the downstairs landing. This door was closed, and he was stood in front of it, maybe a foot in front of it. I was facing him, really clear, and then to the side of me was this chap called Kieran O'Keefe. Now, if you're from the UK, you will know that Kieran O'Keefe is a highly rated parapsychologist, one of the best in the country. And we'd invited him over. He's been on TV shows. So anybody heard of Most Haunted? He used to be on Most Haunted for many years. He's on a TV show in the UK called Uncanny. And but he's a very skeptical parapsychologist, and he was by my right. And it was great to have him there. And I think Steve was a little bit kind of not fangirling him, but he was such a, because he'd grown up with this Kieran guy, had been on TV from Most Haunted, and so he was a big Most Haunted fan.
Right, so yeah, that's where I know him from.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that he was there with us, investigating with us, was great. And so we was just kind of chattering around the kitchen. I think Griff was doing something to camera in the living room, and then right behind Steve, there was 2 knocks on the door, literally just as if somebody was asking to come in, like almost like a polite knock. I automatically assumed it was Griff knocking because it was a kind of busy kitchen. I didn't twig that Griff was in the living room talking to camera. And then Griff was like, did anybody hear that knock? Those knocks? And we're like, oh shit. It's like, and he opened the door, nobody behind it. And I know it wasn't Steve. Steve know it wasn't me. We tried to kind of debunk it by trying 2 different knocks in different parts of the kitchen. Nope, it was definitively from that door. I'd ask and then both me and Steve went to Kieran and was just like, come on, Kieran, I know you're a skeptical parapsychologist, but that happened in front of you. Was that has to be paranormal, Kieran? Come on. And being a parapsychologist, he's never going to admit it to something being paranormal. And he was just like, well, what we can say, he says, is that there were definitely 2 noises that came from the vicinity of the door. And I was like, oh, for God's sake, come on, Kieran. It was just like something knocked on the door and there was nobody behind it, but those are little nuggets of things that have just happened over time. So yeah, right. I'll always be fascinated by this subject, always.
I think people like him are just like, our Kenny Biddle here, being a skeptic, and that's what he does for a living. And I think the only way they're actually going to believe anything is paranormal if it actually, just literally slaps them right in the face.
Even if it did, Kieran admitted to me that even if he saw a ghost, he wouldn't admit it unless he'd captured it on multiple cameras with multiple witnesses who were independently interviewed and saw exactly the same thing. And even then, he wouldn't admit that he'd seen it with his own eyes because he'd think he was hallucinating. So yeah, so he. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Alyssa said Kenny would say he slapped himself. I know. I think they pretty much talk themselves out of the proof.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Sometimes though, sometimes I've seen academics and parapsychologists on TV, and sometimes the answers they give for things happening are even more bizarre than the actual. Whether it's audio stuff, it's like, well, it could be this, it could be that, or they didn't really see a ghost. Could have been this, and it's like, really, because that sounds more ridiculous than what you're saying. This witness is saying.
Exactly. They find anything to justify it.
Yeah, exactly.
That it's not there, and if that's the way they think, that's okay. But maybe someday, I know, because I know, even though Kenny is the way, and I love the way he is, because he finds out it's fact, it's science, but when you can't explain it, then what do you do?
Yeah.
It has to be something.
Oh yeah. I spoke to Kenny recently because I told him about the East Drive experience of the footsteps and the knocks and things. And he was like, they're scribbling notes away. And he was just like, why didn't you go and investigate the source? Because the first thing I would do, he said, is investigate the source and work out whereabouts the noise is coming from. I was like, Kenny, it was happening because we was ignoring it and we didn't want it to stop, which is why we didn't investigate it. I think the only thing he found interesting was that the noise seemed to come from between the floor and the ceiling of downstairs. Because then I know he's probably thinking, well, it's probably water pipes or it's probably some kind of plumbing thing.
Right.
But no, it wasn't. I know what I'd be going for, but yeah. So you're never going to satisfy Kenny,
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Well, as far as that, what are your opinions about all of the equipment that everybody uses?
Oh man,
come on, let us have it. Let us have
it. It's a bit of an ongoing joke, really, because I hate gadgets. I properly hate gadgets, but I will just say, when I first started, and getting into it, when I first got, was obviously, this is a little bit like for everybody, I suppose. When you kind of get into the paranormal, you look to TV shows, and you think, oh, I don't know what kind of equipment I need to use. So I remember watching Ghost Adventures and thinking, oh, okay, he's got an SB7 and an external speaker. I need to get an SB7. So I bought an SB7. And he's got a K2 meter. Oh, I need a K2 meter. I need many K2 meters. And so you end up getting caught in this trap, I suppose, of watching TV shows and thinking, oh, okay. Oh, I need an SLS camera. Oh, okay. Get one of those. Or I need Ovilus device. Get one of those then. And you end up spending a fortune on stuff. And then what happened over time is, bit slowly but surely, After you've used it and after you start reading up on things, you're thinking, well, actually, I don't trust the spirit box, so I'm not going to use that anymore. And I'm not too happy about how easily the K2 meter set off, so I won't be using that anymore. And you end up having less and less equipment. And so now, now when I see anybody on YouTube or whatever using gadgets, I'm like, oh, Jesus. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, God, no, don't use it. Don't use the DR60. No. And I end up just thinking, but people take the mick out of me for basically saying, oh, Justin loves the flashy gadgets. And it's like, I really don't like the flashy gadgets. But yeah, so for a long time, I've just been like, just do your research. Research these things, research the limitations of these things. Go in. I mean, all I would ever do, and if anybody invited me to an investigation, I would literally just show up with myself, voice recorders, and video cameras, and that's it. And notebook and pen and a torch. And so compared to other people I was the same. I used to, the big kind of cases full of stuff, and I think the only thing I still take, it's not really a gadget, but the stuff I still take are things which, things I might use. I'll take rosary beads, or I'll take a crucifix, or I'll take some old coins, or I'll take some things which, hopefully, the whole thing about trigger objects. So I'll take trigger objects, but in terms of other stuff, no, I've slowly got rid of things. So yeah, I just think, I'd already got rid of these things before Kenny Biddle, I've got to say. But if you go onto Kenny Biddle's website and look at his videos of certain gadgets, they are revealing, let's put it that way, in terms of how these things have been constructed and their limitations. And I would recommend looking at his website and looking at how, because he really does take these things apart and sees how they work and why they work as they do.
Right. Yeah, because I had a similar conversation with Steve from Nocturnal Frequency Radio. I just wish, the gadgets are great. It's great for experiments because you never know what might work and what isn't going to work. So it's still just an experiment. But the conversation we had is that all these people that have been doing this for 20, 30 so years, they have all this data. Collect the data, put it together, and then somebody come up with something that is going to be useful with the data that people have collected.
Yeah.
Something actually that is going to work, hands down, as far as needs,
Oh, yeah. I think that the big thing, I suppose, is that the reason why gadgets are so popular is essentially ghost hunting is boring.
Yeah.
Right? It's dull and nothing usually happens. And so, but that does not make great TV, and it does not make great YouTube videos. So there is this, I understand it, because I understand the reasons why people use gadgets, because if there is nothing going on, they know they can turn on a spirit box or a novelist device or a ghost tube app or whatever, and something will happen, and part of me just thinks, they're just doing it because they know nothing's going on, and it looks better if little lights start to glow or a REM pod starts to go off. So, I just think people, if they're being true to themselves, if they do a bit of research, they genuinely know actually that the reason why they're using these gadgets is because it looks better on camera.
Yeah, and like you said, it breaks up the dead air. It's because you're sitting there for hours in the dark.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, and I've said this before. It's like if you want to truly do a ghost hunt, you sit in a room for 8 hours with a notepad in silence, and that is it. And you are literally just recording every noise, every little tap, you record anything and everything. You write the time down. You might have a camera. Most time they don't have a camera, but they might have a voice recorder or a camera. But it is dull,
Yeah.
genuinely really dull. And but nobody wants to do that,
Well, no, and like you said, it doesn't make for great videos, and that's why I
No.
don't have that many videos out, because
Yeah,
it's pretty much
and
just, you sit there and, I only, well, because I don't have the money for all those big gadgets either. So it's always just been a camera, a recorder. I do bring something to register and keep track of temperature, depending where I am. Because I do think that it has it has something to do with it. Like if you're in a
yeah.
residence or just an abandoned building, the temperature change, I think, is something that we need to pay attention to. Um,
Yeah, and also I would just say is, for anybody kind of investigate this, I hear a lot that you have to be respectful and you have to be, you have to be kind of in terms of how you go about things and if you're calling out, doing it in the right way. I absolutely get that, and the vast majority of the time, that is exactly what I do. However, if you're doing this over time, or if you're in one particular location you've got access to, and you try that and it doesn't work, change things up a bit, because I can remember I've done everything, in terms of I've been kind, I've been horrible, I've used the property as I would use it at home, I've ignored it, I've given it attention, I've shouted, I've played music, I've dressed up in kind of, in terms of costumes of the period, I've not ransacked, but basically
I would have liked to have seen.
yeah. But I'd have just like moved chairs and tables and muck things up a little bit and see if that causes a reaction. And yeah, I have tried everything, and none of it usually works. It's worth trying.
Right. Yeah, well, and it always happens when you least expect it.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
You're just walking around and then bam, there it is. So it's
that was the other thing as well, is we would do all of this kind of crazy stuff, and we'd be trying different things out and calling out and asking for that stuff to happen. And one of the things which, like I say, Kenny Biddle will be like, oh man, you can't do that. But one of the things that what I found is you end up giving a human emotion to something that isn't there, right? So
Right.
I'll give an example, is like East Drive, most of the time nothing happens, right? And you try all this stuff out for hours and hours and hours, and you get frustrated and annoyed, and you're calling out. And like I said, we did these live streams, these 8-hour live streams. So by the time it gets to like 5 a.m. and you've been up all through the night, you are exhausted by 5 a.m. So we would do our thing to camera. We're at 5 a.m. We're like, the sun's coming up, right, guys? Okay, we're going to call it a night. We're finished with the night. We're absolutely exhausted. We're going to turn the cameras off, and I will see you again tomorrow night to do exactly the same thing all over again. So at 5 a.m., cameras get turned off. We literally try and get into our beds as quick as possible, because we're just so we're just talking nonsense at this point. You get into bed and you think, right, okay. And I was in one bedroom. Dale, my colleague, was in another bedroom. We close our bedroom doors. Head hits the pillow. Now I can sleep so quickly when I'm tired. I was like 5 minutes and that's it. I don't care where I am. I'm sleeping. So head hits the pillow, and I know within 5 minutes I'll be asleep. Head hits the pillow, and from outside my bedroom door came the sound of marbles hitting the skirting boards around the sides of the walls. And my first reaction actually is, bastard. How we have been asking for stuff to happen all night. For hours on end. And the moment we go to bed, and the moment we close the door, and the moment we turn the cameras off, you start throwing things outside of my bedroom door, hitting against the walls. And I know what it is, because you can tell from the sound. And I'm like, I just don't care. I don't care. And it's like, I'm so tired. I couldn't care less. And it was just like, do what you want. But I'm still, But and after that happens, you are like, there is it's a long kind of there's a description of poltergeist which basically saying poltergeists are like petulant children. They're kind of naughty children that don't want to be told what to do. They don't, and they want to do what they want to do, and that's that.
Right.
That is exactly the feeling I got that moment. It was like it is playing with you, and it was like, how dare you do that? It's like, I cannot believe, and you start getting angry towards it. It's just like, oh my god! It's like this is just nuts. You are angry with it. You're thinking you're just treating me like an idiot. It's like you are playing, and you started all this kind of emotional stuff,
right,
for something that isn't there, and you start giving it human qualities. And it's really hard not to give it human qualities when you're feeling pissed off that this thing is throwing stuff outside your door when you've been asking for it all night.
Right.
And, but yeah, it is. I know that I mean, I suppose it's part of the reason why I love this bloody subject. It's just nuts.
Yeah, I've been to that point too, where it's just like, oh, just knock it off or whatever, and I don't care. I'm going to sleep. I don't care.
Yeah. But yeah, people like, I cannot believe that you would just fall asleep with that happening outside your door. Trust me, when you're tired, you
don't care.
Really don't. Yeah, you don't care. I'm going to sleep. Do what you like.
Have at it. I'm just done. Everybody has a limit, and after a while, it's like, we just don't care.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a place that has disturbed you so much that you won't return to?
No, I generally not. I mean, I've been to places where I thought nervous before going in. One of those. I mean, is it past your bedtime? Yeah. 1:05 in the morning. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you do. I think the reputation of a place precedes it. And so, for instance, the first time if I came to the United States and the first time I'd enter the Conjuring house, I'd be like, oh my god, I've spoken to Andrea Perron, and you'd be like, okay, it's a famous place. Waverly Hills, I'd have the same feeling. There are so many places in the United States and in the UK. I've been, so many places in the United States, I'd have that same feeling. In the UK, there's places like the Ancient Ram Inn, which people may have heard of as well.
Yeah.
Big reputation in terms of some kind of demonic spirit or those kinds of stories. And you go into, before you enter it, you go in thinking, oh, okay, this could actually be the place. This is going to kick off. No. Invariably, it doesn't. It's kind of like, no. But then I've been in other places where I'm not expecting a thing, and stuff happens almost immediately. It's a strange. Like I say, it's a strange thing, So yeah, so don't listen to all the big stories and the big about the grand locations being really haunted, because you'll be disappointed if you think it's actually going to happen like that.
All right. Because I've heard a lot about that place, and everybody goes, "Oh, it's so active," and of course, and those are the ones that get the notoriety. I would love it because you guys have so much history. So many buildings. I would love to see people starting to go to other places that we haven't seen. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I want to do, basically, obviously, do this podcast, which I'm loving. I don't think I'll go. I don't intend to kind of investigate the paranormal like a lot of people do. Night vision cameras, abandoned buildings. It's just not my thing. But what I do want to do in future, and I don't know, I've literally got to get the equipment set up. Basically, I've got to be able to pay for and I want to get nice footage. I'm always, when I've done the podcast, I've always wanted a decent camera, decent audio. It's just the basics, and it was always the same when we did investigating the paranormal. We wanted a proper decent camera, which has got really clear picture quality, and we wanted the audio to be good. We don't want this kind of pixelated rubbish, which is a lot of or for filming stuff on our phones. No. So once I can afford a decent camera and a decent drone, what I want to do is go out around the UK and not do a ghost hunt as such, but I want to show people the location, the history, talk about a little bit of the history of the place, tell people what the ghost story of the place. I'm not saying whether it's genuine or not, but what the legend of that place is like, and then but wrapping it up with some really nice footage and things like that. So giving more people a chance to kind of from around the world see some of these historic locations, because a lot of for instance, we've got loads of castles and things like that. So if you're going to a castle, for instance, a lot of them are protected or they're run by certain charities. And if you wanted to do a ghost hunt, we're talking thousands of pounds, So let's say one place near me, I think they charge roughly $2,000 a night, which for most, even for a ghost event company, is kind of out of their reach. And for somebody who's just like me on my own, no chance. So what I would just do is go in with a decent camera, pay to go in, go with a decent camera, get some nice footage, tell people what the legend and the history of the place is, and just wrap it up like that. Not stay overnight, not do night vision stuff, because there are loads and loads of places around the UK. We're kind of spoilt, actually, because
yes,
from Viking times, Roman times, going through Tudors, medieval times, the castles, there are so many battlefields, battle sites, you name it, that there's, and a lot of these places are not very well known. And I am also a little bit sick of the standard haunted places you see again and again and again and again. Your East Drives, your Ramin and the Chillingham Castle and places like that. Whereas there are thousands of places which are just fascinating, whether it's stone circles and from Stone Age and things like that, or all the way up even to like modern history, like World War II. There's still kind of remains of things from World War II, and there is a whole mishmash, basically, because the UK has been invaded for thousands of years, so there's always remains of something
left behind.
Yeah.
No, you got a brilliant idea. I would love to see that, because I'll never make it there. So at least you could show us, all the things that we aren't going to be able to see.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of places which that are, like I say, not just not known, but also there's a lot of places that were known for their ghost stories that, because they've become gone out of popular culture, I suppose, they might have been written about very famously in the Victorian times, but now nobody knows about it. Or not, same with like myths and legends and stories like that. Unless they're told and retold, a lot of these get forgotten about. So I love digging into the kind of history and the myths of places as well. So yeah, that's what I'd like to do in future, because there is so much, and it's kind of like sad that there's in the US you get to hear like 5 places in the UK when there are just hundreds and hundreds that have great stories.
That's right, because everybody said, well, where would you like to go? I said, I would love to go to the UK, because you do. Every building there has a history.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I said, and most, so a lot of places, you've got layers of history. You've got the Victorian history, but then you'll have the medieval and the Tudor times of the 1500s, and then going back, you've got some places, like for instance where I'm from, there's a city called Lincoln, which is beautiful because it's got a castle, a cathedral from medieval times, but it's been built on Roman foundations. So you've got the Roman walls there and things like that. So yeah, and places like York, which is old York, not New York. York is full of ghost stories and full of history from going back to the Vikings. So yeah, there's a lot there that's kind of really not known about.
And like Alyssa says, same thing. Ireland, same thing. The history is just phenomenal, and you read about it in a book, but I think it's okay reading about it in a book. But when like what you plan on doing, where you're showing us and we can visually
Yeah.
see everything, and then telling us the story, I think it would be more enjoyable
Yeah.
because then we're actually experiencing it with you.
Yeah, and I say a lot of places you kind of you miss out, I suppose, on when you actually go to these places. Let's say, I mean, whether it's a Tudor building or a castle or things like that, and you can just show people and identify, in terms of this is what life would have been like. This is how cold it would have been. This is how bare it would have been. This is the kind of setup and things like that. And yeah, I think. I would just like to kind of put a little bit of. I'm not a historian or anything like that, but just kind of injecting a bit of kind of flavor into some of the footage of these places would be nice. But like I say, if it's wrapping up in a ghost story, even better.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, Alyssa says there are cemeteries that he finds very similar to architectural remains in the UK.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, there are loads of places. I mean, certainly the Victorians had a massive influence, but I mean, like in the town where I live in a place called Gainsborough in Lincolnshire, and here there is. I mean, it's most
Sorry,
of
I
it is.
just have to interrupt you just for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
The names of your towns just crack me up because it's like. It's like, oh, well, where do you live? Well, we live here in New York. Where do you live? And it's da 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 da. It just keeps going, and it's like, I had a friend, God rest her. She passed away a couple of years ago, and she was from England. And when I used to send her stuff through the mail, I mean, it took up the whole envelope.
Yeah, it does go on.
When I had to address it, it was just like, oh my God. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Was it Shire is never Shire? Sure. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so I live in a county called Lincolnshire, and here there is a Tudor building called Gainsborough Old Hall, which is beautiful. It's a gorgeous place. But I mean, you can go in there, and like I said, and it's got a great ghost story. It's got an area called the Ghost Corridor where this ghost was seen by workmen in the 1950s walking down this corridor, the ghost of a lady, and it went to the end of the corridor and turned right and walked through a wall. And only in later repairs of the building did they uncover an original Tudor doorway, which is exactly where the lady turned right through the wall. And so there's that. Like I say, we've got that. Which is a beautiful building, which I'd love to show people again what it's like, because obviously a lot of it you get a good flavor of what life was like in the past and things. But then again, same place, not very far away, there's a church. An angel was meant to have been seen, witnessed in the, I think, 1800s there. And then you've got the Gainsborough Hall, where the hall is now. It used to be the campsite. Well, basically, it was the area which was set up as a Viking king many years ago, called Sweyn Forkbeard, was basically made Gainsborough the capital of England for all of 5 weeks, and then he got murdered. But so you've got all of these kind of layers of history, which I just adore and love, and I want to kind of just showcase some of this stuff that goes on, because let's say a lot of it people won't know about.
Yeah, we don't know about it, and I would just love to see. So even if you don't have a good camera, you don't have to wait that long. Just go there with your phone.
No, true, exactly. I just want to get one of those, like those little kind of, those nice kind of 4K 360 type cameras and stuff like that. Have I had a Scarborough? Yeah, I'd love to go to Scarborough. Never, I've never been to Scarborough. Rob's just looking. Yeah, so should dress up as Doctor Strange. Yeah, no, there's this beard thing. I know this beard may not stay. It's all right for winter.
No, we like it.
Dear.
My husband won't grow a beard either. He just, even though he looks, no, it makes me look old. That's what I hear. So I said, okay, whatever.
Yeah, the thing is, if I shave it, I'll look 12.
Well, that's what it is. It's my husband. Yeah, he looks very young. But then when he has the beard on, he does look older. But it doesn't look bad. But I don't know. He just doesn't like hair. So, oh, geez. As far as when you transitioned into what you're doing now, which is, the podcast.
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult, the transition? Do you enjoy doing the podcast more or the investigating more?
Initially, I was kind of nervous actually because the first one, I mean, I'm a teacher, so I'm used to talking. Basically, I talk and I can talk and talk and talk, and it's just easy for me to talk. But I'm still nervous actually talking to camera, and thanks, Dragon Ranger.
You were voted against. You got to keep the beard.
Yeah. But I mean, the whole thing of the podcast has always been because I've got this genuine, a little bit like yourself, genuine, really interest in the paranormal. And when I did the podcast, I just did it from the perspective of I just want to know what the hell is going on, and I will talk to anybody and everybody who has either witnessed something or academically they've got there's an expert in I mean, people say, oh, there's no experts in the paranormal, but there are parapsychologists who are experts in their field, and the likes of Kenny Biddle is perfect as well. I'm getting him on. But I will talk to anybody who's either witnessed something or got a really good background, and they've got a really good knowledge of a particular location, or they work for a particular historic location and things like that. And I just have that interest, and I just want to get that across to people. And I think when you have that genuine interest, it becomes easy to be right there with another question. I've seen some podcasts and some people hosting it where the host, not yourself, obviously, or anybody else, but where some of the hosts, but where some of the people kind of hosting it look a little bit disinterested, or they kind of zone out. And I've never been like that because whenever somebody's talking, I'm there going, oh, okay, what about this? What about that? Right. You want to kind of get in there with the next question. And and because the paranormal is so weird, no subject is off limits. I mean, I've spoken to some amazing people, and all right, I get it that it's not to everybody's taste, certain subject matter. Like, for instance, I had a lovely lady called Kate Ray, who is into fairies and the fae, and she was talking about gnomes, and like the likes of Beardo came on. I was like, no. She first came on wearing elf ears, and Beardo just came in and went, mate. As soon as I saw the elf ears, that was it. I was done. I can't handle it. I cannot handle anybody wearing elf ears. Sorry, mate. He says, like, no, can't do it. So I get the subject matter can be really weird, but it's the paranormal, Right. I mean, I had a guy last week talking about cryptids that have been, not just the Loch Ness Monster in the UK, but some really weird animal sightings, a little bit like the Sasquatch and other things in the UK, which people don't even realize there've been these kinds of stories. And and I like getting the weirdness.
The story,
I think it makes things more interesting, more fascinating. And
same as me. I just recently did a program with a woman who is a Bigfoot hunter.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to find her because I wanted somebody that was serious about it, because I don't know anything about that, and I wanted to know, how do you do that? How do you go out and hunt for Bigfoot? Yeah. And she was awesome. She's a lovely lady. And I'm telling you, talk about research. She does research.
Yeah.
She's serious about it.
That's the thing is, and when you find somebody who's genuinely really engaging, or really kind of, they've got a really good understanding and a grounding and knowledge and stuff. I'm like a kid. I'm like, what about this? What about that? How is that possible? What? And sometimes they can be so bizarre, these things. I just try and put myself in the perspective of, because I'm not trying. I mean, the thing, and a little bit like yourself, I'm not trying to have a particular. Although I can be quite opinionated of some things, and it's nice to have a background in the paranormal because I know what it's like to, for instance, go ghost hunting for hours on end. I'm not somebody who just read about it in a book, and because I've kind of lived it to an extent. If anybody as well has witnessed anything and they want to come on and talk about what's happened to them, I'm not going to be one who's just going to lean back and go, well, you've obviously made that up. And it's probably this, and it's probably sleep paralysis. And you become a little bit opinionated, a bit of an asshole, to be honest. So I just, and so if you're actually talking to people who've had a genuine experience, you want to come across and allow people to tell their story. Which it sounds kind of quite straightforward, but it sometimes isn't. But yeah, I've had all kinds of, and I've loved it. On the next Monday, I've got a magician coming on, and it's in the UK. I suppose like a bit like the US. There's certain magicians that have been on TV and are kind of well known. I mean, the ones I'm thinking of in America is probably like the likes of Penn and Teller.
Okay.
Penn and Teller I think they did a TV show called Bullshit, and they were very much against the paranormal because in terms of psychic mediums or claims of mentalism, things, or Ouija boards, and they were just basically showing how it's rubbish.
Right.
And the magician I've got on is a guy in the UK who was on TV a lot in the 1990s, a guy called Paul Zenon. And Paul is pretty opinionated, very like a lot of magicians are, about the paranormal, and I'm going to find it really interesting. I'm not going to get defensive about it. It's a case of, he going back from the likes of Harry Houdini, and James Randi, and there are a whole bunch of magicians out there who, for years, have been kind of trying to debunk claims of the paranormal. I'm just going to find it fascinating,
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, these are guys that obviously have spent hours and hours and hours fooling people because it's an illusion, whether that's sleight of hand or mentalism or just psychology, and getting his perspective, on, like say, what a psychic medium is doing is that, and I think it's going to be really interesting. So yeah, I love this kind of stuff. I think it's just great.
Okay, I'm going to put you on a spot here.
Go on then.
Out of all of the guests that you have interviewed, who was your favorite?
Oh man. That was my favorite. There's been a couple of people who have surprised me, certainly. I mean, I had Dave Schrader on, and obviously really well known in the US, Dave Schrader, but like I said, I didn't think he'd be as personable and lovely as he actually was. He's just a really, really nice guy. And obviously he's done loads of stuff on TV and things like that. And I thought he might be a bit of an arsehole, but actually he was amazing. He was so funny. But the ones I found most interesting, there's a guy who gotta be Ouija Brothers. No, it's not the Ouija Brothers because they are absolutely nuts.
I'd love to get them, but yeah.
Oh my God. I've had the Ouija Brothers on, and it was a car crash because they just don't care. I'd Griff flossing his teeth at one point whilst he's talking to me. It's like, oh, for God's sake.
No, I sent a message, I never heard anything from him. I said, well, they're too busy. They don't know me.
Yeah, the thing is, I love the Ouija Brothers, genuinely, but oh my God, yeah. So yeah, the ones that I've actually found most fascinating have been, there's a guy called Keith Linder, and I did 2 episodes with Keith because he lived in Washington State, and Keith is basically, he was on Ghost Adventures a long time ago called the Demons in Seattle, I think it was called an episode, and it was the only, I don't know if anybody knows it or heard of it, but basically Keith Linder was shown up by Zach Bagans as faking. And so it's the only one really where I've seen Zach go, I think Keith Linder's full of shit and his girlfriend's making it up for attention. and it became quite notorious. And ever since then, Keith has been trying to show what happened in his home and putting, and he's written, I think, 3 books about his his poltergeist case. He's then had other people, he's had other investigators in to kind of confirm what he said about what's going on. So I generally find those kinds of events, the things were very personable kind of witness statements and events of what's happening in the home backed up by studies. I just find really more interesting than any kind of academic thing, because somebody who's lived it and been through it, I find those more interesting than some others, more interesting, those guys who are just trying to sell a book or whatever.
All right. All right. Now, of course, the opposite question would be, who
go on.
I know what's coming. Who is it that you wish that you never had on?
See, you can't do that to me, because I'm still doing this thing. Are people like, oh, did you hear Justin kind of bad mouthing you? I will just say, I've had people on. I'm not going to name names because that's going to be
okay.
Out there,
that's
right?
Okay.
I've had people on, and I thought that'd be great, and they start talking, and and I'm watching it and watching it and watching it, and they're talking and talking and talking, and I'm kind of zoning out. And sometimes people have this very kind of some people have the kind of a voice that kind of will lull you to sleep, and after a while it's like, okay, I'm getting bored. It's really,
thanks for joining us. We have a good night.
It's not a good thing, when you're thinking, oh my god, I'm getting bored. The listeners, whoever's watching this, must be getting bored as well, surely. But so some people have that kind of drony voice, but there's been 1 or 2 people like that, but generally I've been quite lucky, I think. But they're the ones, and the only other ones that have been quite hard, or if they're very, very specialist in their particular field, and I don't really know what they're talking about. That's
Right.
tricky, and I've had I've had like academics and people like that who were very, very knowledgeable in their particular field, and they'd be using terms which I'll be there going, I actually don't know what you're talking about. But then other people on the chat would be like, when you was talking about this, can you just explain to the lay person what that means, because we don't know? And so I'm thinking, oh, thank God it wasn't just me.
No, that's what you got to say. Well, could you explain it to everybody, because we don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah. Would you ever have random people from your chat on your live? Well, I could you risk it? When I first started doing the like I said, I do the podcast with the guests and do that, and then I do a thing called the Chimps Tea Party, where I've no guests. I just chat to people on the chat, because when I'm talking to a guest, I'm generally ignoring the chat, or trying to ignore the chat, particularly when they're trying to be funny or offensive on purpose, which is sometimes really hard.
Yeah.
And looking at you, Rob. Anyway.
He called you out.
But you know what I mean? But you, when you're trying to listen to somebody, you're trying to be ready for the next question. And I kind of ignore the chat a little bit. So the whole Chimps Tea Party thing was a chance for me to talk to people watching at home. And I was coming up with the idea of maybe I should just let, like that, like you've got like a StreamYard link or whatever. And I said, well, maybe I'll just give out the StreamYard link. I've seen 1 or 2 other podcasts doing it, and anybody can come in and give me their opinion or whatever. And I was just like, okay, yeah, that could be a really good thing, and it's really nice, and it's really interactive, and for those who love the podcast, it's a great way to talk to me properly, and I get to see them, I get to hear their opinion, and then off they go. And if they're rude or offensive, I just shut them down.
That's it.
But then somebody said, but if you do this too much, or if you do this too often, and if your channel grows, at some point you're going to have somebody getting naked on your stream, or or flashing, or they're going to come out with something so offensive it could shut your channel down. I was like,
yes.
Yeah, okay, maybe I won't let anybody on.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've heard that too. Don't put it out there because you never know what you're going to end up with.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I just tell everybody, I'll interview anybody. So if you're interested, you contact me privately and we'll set up a time.
Yeah.
I just think that's the safest way to go.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I was genuinely there going, maybe I should just give it out to everybody, and anybody can come in. Yeah, and then the sensible part of me was like, no, this is a really bad idea. Don't do that.
Okay, guys. I'm gonna open up the last half hour for questions. So if anybody has any questions for Justin, let's get them out there because it's getting late for him. So
Yeah,
get those.
come on. It's only 25 to 2, and I've got work at 6 in the morning.
Yeah, see, he's so nice. It's so kind of you.
Yeah. I'm gonna be properly feeling it tomorrow though. But hey, I'll just because I'm teaching, I will probably take it out on some kids.
That's all. See, yeah, give it to them. Pop quiz.
Yeah.
Blame it on me. They don't know who the hell I am, so you can blame it on me.
Just the grumpy teachers. Just stay away from the grumpy teachers that too much
Excuse
caffeine.
me. Spookfest, I told you, yeah, just contact me. Usually it's easier to do it through Facebook chat, messenger there, and we can set up a time. I'll have you on. But yeah, everybody just start kicking out those questions for Justin. What is the future? Actually, we'll get in a quick one. The future of your podcast. What is your future plans?
Mainly just carry on doing what I'm doing, and just, I mean, the first thing is obviously trying to get good guests on, which is sometimes harder than you might think, because
it is,
you want people on who know what they're talking about and engaging and are quite lively and things like that. And in the paranormal is actually quite a small field, and there are only so many people. So I've been doing this since December, and I'm already finding it quite tricky actually to kind of fill the
spots.
With people who are kind of entertaining. But I always try and get the best people, and I'm looking further afield now. So I'm looking. There's a guy I want to get hold of in Brazil, who's talking about wants to talk about UFOs, and so I'm just going to try and get a bit wider afield internationally. So there's that. Just carrying on growing the channel. I mean, I've only got like 1,500 subscribers, so carrying on growing that. I've just changed the logo. I've just added a merch store, which I didn't think I'd do. It sounded a bit pretentious, but I did a merch store.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. And
I'm only got like 200 and something, so I got a ways to go. And I am so grateful for every single one of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I am as well, and it really does make a difference, because the bigger the subscribers, that you'd like to think that the reach will grow that bit more, when you're doing, right. And and sometimes you get a bit kind of frustrated and things like that, but
yes.
But actually, you think, do you know what I'm doing is a good thing, and I just think it'll just gonna, if the quality's there, you just hope that everybody will kind of eventually catch on and kind of subscribe and stuff, So, but I thought, I was hoping in a year, I thought, well, my target would be like, I would love to be able to get 500 people by the end of the year, and that was my target. The fact I've got 1,500 now is great, and it's just like, I just love that. Yeah, I mean, but I try not to look at anybody else, and I try not to kind of compare, particularly those who have gone from like no subs to 50,000. It's like, whoa!
And you're thinking, all right, what did I do wrong?
Yeah. But I suppose the only other thing that's coming up that I want to do in the future is, like I say, go out filming, doing stuff outside of the podcast, learn how to edit properly. I've got to say, is going to be a big learning curve for me, because although we did when I did the Paranormal Truth stuff a long time ago, Dale, my colleague, did all the editing, so I'm really new to that. So I'm going to be learning that.
Me too.
And just to kind of expanding my own kind of knowledge of video production, to be basically to make it look decent.
Just got to go back to school.
Yeah.
Friday wants to know, what was your easiest debunk?
I think most things can be debunked very easily and very quickly. It's just a matter of going and investigating it, I've got to say. And sometimes when you're on edge or a little bit nervous, you like if there's the noise coming from another room, you it's actually you're like, oh my god, I don't really want to go in this. It's kind of scary. But yeah, when it's so the easiest debunk is literally kind of investigating the source of a noise. I mean, things like on camera, it might sound really noisy and loud, and so, oh my god, something's tapping or something making a knocking noise, and you investigate it, and it's the sound of a fridge, or it's the sound of an open window, or a branch hitting a pane of glass, whatever. So it's the easiest thing to do is just go and investigate noises, even if you're a little bit kind of scared of what it might actually be.
Okay, Rob says, so Justin, when am I coming on your channel to grovel? I
Never.
love your podcast. It's brilliant. Keep it up.
Thank you, Rob.
You're in timeout, Rob.
Grovel as much as you want, Rob.
Jeff from Boo Productions. Have you ever had someone that you wanted to have on that you thought you had no chance at?
Let's think. I didn't think. Well, actually, one of the very first ones. I mean, I know that the whole Conjuring House thing is just blown up and gone nuts. But I've got to say, like, I think I was only on not my very first one. It was just my very first podcast thing was like a general kind of launch thing. But the first guest I had on who agreed to come on was the not Jacqueline Nunez, but the ex-owner of the Conjuring House, and I was just like, oh my god, I've actually because I booked them. It was kind of Halloween time, and I thought there is no way I'd be able to get the owners of the Conjuring House on, and they were like, yeah, sure, we'll come on, and it was like, oh okay, this actually, I was genuinely shocked and surprised, but I still have loads of people I want to get on, and I still have people who I would love to talk to. I mean, Darren Brown. If anyone knows Darren Brown, I would love to get on. I would love to speak to Dan Aykroyd.
Right? Oh, that would be awesome.
Jason Hawes I'd like to have on. But, the people who have been big on TV, that I've tended to be blocked by them because they don't like. I've said, like, for instance, like Zach Bagans kind of blocked me because I questioned his use of subtitles for EVPs. And so he just blocked me immediately. So Zach's not going to talk to me anytime soon. And
well, you're not heartbroken, are you?
No. I think I'll live. But yeah, I would say Dan Aykroyd is still my number one goal target. I would love to.
That would be fantastic. Rob wants to know if he could be a mod for you. He'd behave. You're getting the eyebrow. I don't know.
Really, Rob? If I give you that responsibility, it's got disaster written all over it, Rob.
Michael wants to know, what was your least favorite experience as a paranormal investigator? And are there any experiences that you knew was paranormal but couldn't clarify it?
Really good question. So my least favorite experience was whenever like I said, we did the paranormal truth stuff, and so we always went to places you had to pay to get into, and we'd never gone down the road of abandoned buildings, which a lot of people do. But there was one we did have. There was one place, our very first and only abandoned building we went to was a former mental asylum, which is always a great kind of thing to go to. But it was this former mental asylum, and we went in, and we was kind of obviously was there for an hour doing the B-roll shots and just started our investigation proper when a police helicopter buzzed us overhead. Spotlight on, infrared camera, and when you've got a police helicopter literally above you, it's genuinely kind of scary. because you're
Right.
thinking, oh shit, we are
Guys dropping down on cables.
yeah, oh yeah. You just think every kind of thing you think is gonna happen. You're thinking, oh, the guy, you know, the police are just gonna show up and arrest us and cart us off and handcuff us, and this helicopter just would not quit. It was directly above this asylum, and it's obviously picked up on a couple of heat signatures in that building. And they're obviously looking for somebody more criminal than us, right? But they're still locked onto us. And I was like, how the hell are we going to get out of this? There's just there is no way we can't run. So we ended up like there's these like concrete stairs, and we ended up like hiding beneath these concrete stairs, hoping the heat cameras won't pick up on two kind of stupid middle-aged men hiding from them.
Right.
And so we were just there going, what do we do, mate? What do we do? Do we go? Do we run? Do we just do we chance it? Or do we wait for the dogs to arrive, basically? And I was like, and we're just waiting and waiting. And eventually, whether it's, I don't know, eventually, anyway, it was just low overhead. And you could hit it. It's so loud. And eventually it was like, anyway, and then eventually started to kind of like go off, and it was going to pan back round again. So as it went off, we legged it. We ran as fast as we could out of this building. I dived through this kind of bramble bush. I got ripped to shreds in terms of these thorns going in me. And I was just like, we just kind of dived through this hedge just to escape this helicopter. Anyway,
roll around in the dirt,
yeah, exactly. Kind of like burst through this fence and ran, kind of like we were all there. We've got rucksacks and camera gear and tripods and stuff. And oh dear God. And like I said, eventually we got back to our car, and the helicopter was still kind of doing circles around us. Like, right, okay, they don't realize that it's us, we're here now. But oh my God, that was just, and after that, we never did an abandoned building again. It was like, I cannot do that again. That is just nuts. Anyway, that's a very long answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian wants to know what your thoughts on astral travel is.
I find it genuinely really interesting. It's a little bit like other things like reincarnation and spiritual stuff. I do find the subject matter really, really interesting. Like old neighbors of mine, husband and wife, apparently they used to regularly astral travel almost every night, and they were able to leave their bodies and go on and fly over the tops of the local town, and they would recall what they saw and what they did, and how they were joined by like an invisible this thread that led to their umbilical cord. It was properly nuts what they were telling me, but they used to kind of do it. I don't know if they did it as a couple or they did it individually. I don't know, but they used to kind of were able to do it at will. Yeah, I find the subject matter really interesting, particularly those that seem to have seen things which they couldn't possibly have known was there when they're at a certain height above their bodies. I love those kinds of stories. But yeah, I'm fascinated by it. I don't know enough about it to kind of have a proper answer, but I do find the subject really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Oliver wants to know, would you have like to have interviewed the Warrens?
Good question. I think if the Warrens were around today, would I have wanted to get them on to talk to them? Absolutely. Knowing what I know now, I think if they were still alive, then, and a lot of things have come out since their investigations, I would be perhaps a little bit more critical, I suppose, in terms of my questions of them, and a little bit more skeptical, because it seems a lot of the stuff that they wrote down had very little credibility. So I would love to have investigated them, but also interviewed them. So yeah, I think I would have done. I don't think I would not interview them just because some of their cases are dodgy. Let's put it that way.
There you go. And so Jeff could hook you up with their grandson if you're interested.
Oh, that's cool. That's definitely. Like
Jeff used to
I
part
I
of the
think there's.
Foundation.
I do think that people have gone the other way now with the Warrens, whereas people would be, I think, really quite I think in the 1970s, I think people were much more willing to believe in what they were saying and took things at quite face value, and they seem to be, and so people were kind of absolutely hooked into them. Now things are becoming more and more critical of them, to the extent now that I don't think anybody believes anything that the Warrens did. It'd be interesting to see if there's what truth there was to their cases.
Right. Yeah, because Jeff actually was a part of that foundation. So he does know a lot of people who were involved.
Yeah.
And he says that they did do a lot of things that did help a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's just we didn't hear about it. We
Yeah.
only heard about the Hollywood garbage. And I think that's what spoiled it for him. So maybe their intentions were true.
Yeah.
And so it'd be nice to hear the truth.
I think that's it. I mean, I think, a lot of people kind of just they hear about Amityville, for instance, they go, oh well, they just made it all up for a book and movie deal, and they were just only interested in the Enfield thing because of a book and a movie deal, and they were just making stuff up. So I think people have gone the other way now, and it'd be nice to kind of cast some light on things which they believe was actually genuine.
Right. Spookfest wants to know, do you believe in OBE or remote viewing?
Well, it's not a case of believing it, because like I said, because I've never experienced it and I've never spoken to anybody who is able to do it, then I mean, it's hard for me to believe it, just because I'm that skeptical person that just I need convincing, so do I believe it? I would like to believe it. I with a lot of these things I would like to believe it, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it, I've got to say. I don't know, I have enough evidence in front of me to give an opinion, I would say. Is the kind of sitting on the fence answer. Sorry.
So, well, I think a lot of people have those, looking or on the fence about a lot of things, because you're not sure, yes or no, but you don't want to close the door to any kind of subject because, like I said, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Just being open-minded. I mean, there's a famous case in the UK called Jeff the Talking Mongoose. And you should look that up if you want to hear bizarre stories. So nothing's off limits in the paranormal. There are just so many weird stories. Keep an open mind, everybody.
What does have to say?
Yeah.
Friday says, have you looked into the Gateway tapes or the Gansfield
experiment?
Is it Gansfield?
Yeah. No, is my honest answer. I know about the Gansfield experiment and I know of the Gateway tapes. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, my whole thing has always been around hauntings and stuff, but I do find the Gansfield experiment really interesting. But I think certain areas I still need to kind of research more and look into more, and that's why I'm always on the lookout for experts or academics who can give a lot more detail in those particular areas. I think, and I think I don't claim to be an expert, never will, but I will try and find people who know more than I do to kind of talk about.
And to clarify, what the rest of us don't know. So yeah, it's like I said, it is difficult to find people that you want to come on, and find subjects that people, because everybody, you can't just stick to the paranormal. You do have to go outside that realm. Because when I was talking about doing the Bigfoot show, everybody goes, "Well, what do you want to do that for? It's BS." And I go, "No, there's a lot of people that want to know what they do and how they do it, along with all that other stuff. You have to spread out."
Well, it's a bit like, and I talked about this lady who came on talk about this case involving some gnomes, and I went to this paranormal convention, and sometimes you meet these people at the conventions, and I went to this paranormal convention. She gave her talk about this gnome case, And I was listening to it going, come on, this is utter rubbish. But by the end of the talk, there was enough question marks about it. Go, oh, I've got to get this woman on to talk about this. It is so bizarre and so weird. And basically, that in a nutshell, in the 1970s, a group of children went into this park almost, and this kind of the grounds of this estate, this huge mansion house, and witnessed 70 gnomes in flying cars. And it was just such a mental, bizarre kind of story. And then she was just talking about it and the witness statements and how the children's head teachers had interviewed them individually and and what the corroboration was. And I was just like, oh yeah, this is really weird. I need to get this on. But, you know, it's that kind of stuff. It's just not being closed off to the madness, you know? Kind of,
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get them on.
Oh, my goodness. That's interesting. Oliver said, what would you like, or who would you like to interview outside of the paranormal stuff?
Ooh, that is really, because outside of the paranormal stuff, that's a hard one, because I honestly can't tell you. I don't know. I mean, I've been so kind of paranormal fixated. It could say, oh, if I can talk to anybody, who would it be? I don't know. I really don't know. That is such a hard one for me to kind of answer. Because do I want to talk to a politician? No. Would I particularly want to talk to a celebrity? Not really. You know, and it's that kind of, I think that's such a hard question, because I'd want to find somebody who would be engaging and interesting to talk to, who would have a really fascinating, I suppose there's a chap who is incredibly clever called Stephen Fry in the UK. And I would love to talk to him because he's a comedian, but incredibly intellectual and very, very clever. And he's an atheist. So he's very opinionated about the whole notion of God. And so, yeah, maybe him, because I think he'd make, you know, like one of these dinner party type guests that people have that kind of question about, who would you like to kind of talk to at dinner? You know, somebody who would be entertaining and have lots of kind of stories to tell. Somebody like that. Somebody would be engaging. But that's all I could think of. That's a hard one.
I think what popped into my head, the name popped in my head, would be Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, oh yeah. Rick is funny. I've got to say, Ricky is great, because he
cracks me up. So
yeah.
But he, you know,
Carl Pilkington. If you ever know Carl Pilkington, even funnier.
Oh.
Like I say, because I don't know if you know of Carl Pilkington, but he's one of Ricky Gervais's friends.
Right.
And he doesn't mean to be hilarious, because he is just he's just unimpressed by life, by everything. And there was a series called The Idiot Abroad, and Ricky Gervais basically sent him around the world, and to see if in terms of the 100th most amazing things you could do before you die type thing. And Carl just went around the world with these amazing experiences, not impressed by any of them. He is so funny, and just hilarious.
Oliver says, "What about
Tommy Robinson?" Oh my God, no. And anybody who is just going to spew hatred to about ethnic minorities or asylum seekers, no. It's a bit like, would I interview Donald Trump? No.
No.
Kind of like, wouldn't want to go there.
Yeah, there's just some people you just don't put on
on
a show. I mean, oh my goodness. All right, guys, we are going to shut this down so Justin can get some sleep. We don't want to.
Please let me sleep.
We don't want a cranky teacher in the morning, and like I said, you could just blame all of us. And
yeah, it's all good. It's absolutely fine.
I've enjoyed everybody's questions, and thank you everybody for joining us. And Justin, you have been fantastic.
Bless you. Thank you.
Um,
Thank you for inviting me on. So thank you so much,
oh,
Laura.
you know what? You were one of the people I never thought that I would get to interview, and then see,
There you are.
and I could
Yeah,
just
I'm
check.
easy going, easy going. Yeah, just kind of hit me up and I'll be like, yeah, I'll get on.
Well, you know what it is I know in a lot of people, the smaller channels like me, when we do the interviews, you're thinking, okay, well, look at how many subs they got, and they're, a big deal. There's no way they're even going to answer my email. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't have that many subs, but also like it's. I mean, I'm not saying this to, I genuinely just have a love and an interest in the paranormal. I subscribe to so many paranormal channels of people I admire and podcasts I really like, and the people who I think are genuine. I can't stand the stuff who aren't genuine. But so the people who are going about things in the right way and are lovely, like yourself, Laura, because you just kind of are just lovely, and I think you're great.
thank you.
And yeah, people like that I would listen to and want to kind of get involved with. So yeah, of course, I'd come on.
So we'll just have to have you on again. And again, I've seen all new faces in the chat, so I'm going to just have to check everybody out. So again, everybody, thank you very much. Please remember to subscribe to Justin's channel if you aren't. Give him, and please remember to give us a thumbs up, like, share, whatever. Hit those bells and whistles. I always forget to tell everybody.
So do
I always
I.
feel like I'm begging. You like me, you like me.
I feel exactly the same thing. It's just like I say it almost as a joke. It's like, oh, you can like, subscribe, what all that kind of stupid stuff, or
Right.
you can
Do
have a look
all
at the
this
merch
stuff.
film. I don't push it because I feel like it's impolite to push it, but
Yes.
But some people are like, no, go subscribe, go get my stuff, go get this, and it's like I just feel like an asshole if I do that.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way.
Yeah.
Everybody have a great night, and thank you so much for joining us on the Raw Side. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Night.